Welcome to the Mental Advantage Podcast. Whether you're an athlete trying to perform at your best when it counts the most, a coach or business leader trying to get more out of your team, or someone looking for more personal growth, this is the place for you. This podcast is your map to guide you to the right mindset, systems, and strategies you need to become the best version of yourself. And now, here's John Cullen and Brandon Allen.
Yeah, so my bracket is completely hosed. That was a big win by UCLA last night. So, well, hey, what about next week? I mean, as a sports fan, you've got NCAA championship Final Four. You've got opening day for baseball, and to coincide with our guest tonight, we got the Masters on CBS.
Yeah, no, it's a great time of year. You think about those games you were talking about with basketball. There's so much. I mean, this stretch right from the Elite Eight, really the whole tournament, but from the Elite Eight into the Final Four, and then especially in the next weekend, it's going to be a lot of really having to be dialed into every single play, right?
Oh, for sure. And like our listeners are going to hear about tonight, especially some of the Cinderella teams where, Dr. Mo will get into not just how do you mentally prepare for the next shot, but how do you mentally prepare for the next shot while you're having success?
Absolutely. Dr. Morris Pickens from the PGA TOUR, Sea Island down in Georgia, really great sports psychologist. I mean, we talk about the fact that Golf Digest considers him number 4 in the top 10 golf psychologists. And one of the things you guys will hear as Dr. Mo starts to break down tonight's show is practice and preparation, is you'll just start to hear the level of detail that these golfers put into every single thing that they do. There's a purpose behind it. And that's something we've talked about on this show before, is be more intentional with the things that you're doing, whether it was the MVP process. It's all about just getting yourself to have greater intention to every action of your day. And I really am excited about this series of shows, Brandon, because Dr. Mo is somebody that is going to be able to go through a lot of different things that is going to help not just golfers, but anybody who's listening to it when they hear the level of preparation and they hear all of the details and really the thought behind every single thing that they're doing out there when it comes to practicing. So this is the first show of 4. This is the Masters edition because it's the week before the Masters that will be focused around the practice and preparation. And then, of course, show 2 will be the week leading into the PGA Championship, and that will be focused more on the off-the-course preparations. And then the final 2 shows of this Grand Slam series with Dr. Mo Pickens will be the week leading into the U.S. Open and the week leading into the Open Championship, which is at Royal St. George's this year. And those shows will both be about on the course, strategies and the things that they put into place. So really looking forward to this. I know you guys will enjoy it a lot and take plenty of notes. And without further ado, we'll bring in Dr. Mo. So welcome to the show. And Brandon, you and I have been talking about this. We actually talked about it last week, but we've been talking about this for a couple of months now, ever since we found out we were going to get this great opportunity to sit down with Dr. Morris Pickens, and as most people know him as Dr. Mo. But, here's somebody who is listed as Golf Digest as number 4 in the top 10 golf psychologists. PGA Tour client list is headed by Zach Johnson, winner of the 2007 Masters and 2015 British Open. He's a sports psychologist and performance enhancement specialist. He's helped players win 4 major championships: Lucas Glover in the 2009 U.S. Open and Stewart Cink in the 2009 British Open, and 27 PGA Tour events, 1 NCAA championship. In addition to golf, Dr. Pickens has helped professional athletes in NASCAR, NFL, Major League Baseball, college athletes, and almost every sport. The other thing about Dr. Mo is he's written 3 books. So you start with, The Winning Way in Golf and Life. He's also written Learning to Win a Major, and that'll be important for what we're going to be talking about over the next 4 months. And then also Learn to Win One Shot at a Time, which I like that mindset of just, we talk about that a lot, one day at a time. And then also works with Elevate Performance, where they do customized coaching, executive development retreats, all those types of things. And we'll get into some of those things. But Dr. Mo, we can't thank you enough for joining us. It's our pleasure for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fun little series. And hopefully the listeners can get a little something to improve their game along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked last week about how golf is just one of those sports. I think other than the sport Brandon and I have played with baseball, I can't think of a sport that's more mentally challenging than golf is, mainly because of just the amount of time that you're focused on or have to reflect on that last shot that you just hit.
Right. It's definitely a sport where there's more downtime relative to the action than probably any other sport. I mean, we might have to do some of the crunch the numbers, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people just struggle wondering how to spend that time, and they know what they want to do in terms of where they're trying to get their mind, but they can't get themselves to do it. And so, but there's a lot of, just, I don't know if it's bad information or just misconceptions about, what you actually want to be doing, during that 4.5 hours.
Yeah, that's interesting. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. So let's start where we usually start with our guests. So grew up in South Carolina, kind of, if you would, just take us through some of those stepping stones that got you to where you are today.
Yeah, so grew up in South Carolina. I was in high school in the kind of mid to late 80s and played a lot of golf, played other sports. So, we have one older brother, and so got picked on by the older kids and all that kind of fun stuff. And, but I'm sitting there, literally, I'm a junior in high school. I'm watching TV one night, never heard of sports psychology. And there's this guy in the gym with Karl Malone in Stockton for the NBA Utah Jazz. They're shooting some free throws and just kind of having fun. And there's kind of like a documentary, and I get a little bit interested. And then they show another clip, and this guy's getting on an airplane, and they're flying on a private plane to go play the Lakers at the Forum. And then they showed a game, and this guy's sitting behind a bench eating popcorn and drinking a Coke. And I'm thinking to myself, like, are they paying this guy? This is ridiculous. So I'm literally like, okay, sign me up. That's what I want to do. Right. And, so here I am, I don't know, 30 years later or more for sure. And, I'm not so much sitting behind a bench, eating popcorn and drinking Coke, but I'll be at least walking around those green fairways next week and eating a little bit of egg salad and having some lemonade. And then we'll see if it gets to be fun or not when those guys walk off the 18th green. So
that's right. That's exactly right. No, that's awesome.
But after that, I mean, so that's really how I got interested in it. And then, so I just feel blessed. I knew at a very early age, I was going to need to go to graduate school and that sort of thing. And so at the time, Rotella was just really kind of getting big in golf. This was the early 90s. And I knew I would have the most, at least instant credibility at 5'6" with golfers than I would in an NBA locker room. So went and kind of studied under him, and then got out on my own and been doing it, and now based at Sea Island, Georgia for the last 16 years.
That's fantastic. And you talk about somebody in Dr. Rotella who, I mean, that's a giant in this industry. I mean, it's one of those guys. We were just talking about him last week with one of our guests that we had on, and he was talking about some of the work he had done with some of the baseball teams. And I mean, that experience at University of Virginia, that's where you went to school, right? Your grad school you did at University of Virginia, not too far from where I am right now, actually. But what was it like learning from him every single day? I mean, like you said, he just kind of right there at the peak of it. Right.
Well, I mean, so it was a small program and very small classes, and you had to be prepared because you'd get called out. The first couple of years, there's a lot of other stuff. I thought if I ever get through advanced motor learning, I'm going to just, shout hip, hip, hooray, because that was class about kill me. But, it was really good. And you get a lot of opportunity right out of the gate to go kind of, hone your skills and learn what you don't know and try to get better at it. And so I was there for roughly 5 years for both the master's and then the doctorate program. And then, but yeah, we've had other people. One guy, I'm not going to get into it, but one guy, he actually stayed on and he works with the, I guess you would call it the residents, in the medical school there, just the pressure that those guys are going to be dealing with, specifically in the surgery department, because, I'm sitting on a green and it's, you need to quote unquote make this 6-footer, but that's different than when a guy's laying on a table and you need to make sure you make the right cut. That's a little bit different deal. So.
Different type of making the cut for sure. So talk to me a little bit about what's a typical week for you, as it relates to being on the tour when it's a typical tour week. What's that look like? Right.
So for the last 15 years, at least, what it's looked like is about 18 to 20 weeks a year I'm on tour. Mainly with the PGA Tour, it's hard to travel more than one tour at a time. I have players on other tours, but so I really only travel the PGA Tour. I'm typically getting there Monday midday, maybe Tuesday morning in the past, pre-COVID, but now with the testing that we have to go through and all that, I'm usually getting there Monday so I can make sure I got all my testing done, ready to go Tuesday morning, and then I'll stay till Friday. Very rarely do I stay on the weekends because, either they're playing well and I might just mess them up, or they've missed a cut and we're going to talk that night anyway, whether I'm there or not. So, a week looks like get there Tuesday morning. Let's say I have 4 to 5 guys in that tournament. I've basically already communicated with them about who wants to do what. Some guys like me to be on course more with them and really kind of always around. Zach Johnson and I, we've worked together since 2006. So, he a lot of times will give me a heads up, hey, this course, what we need to be doing. And almost just give me the leeway to kind of plan his day. Whereas newer guys are like, I'm going to see my swing teacher at 10 o'clock and then I'm going to go play from, 12 to 2:30. So could you just walk 4 or 5 holes with me? I got one little thing I want to talk to you about my short game routine or whatever. And then another guy might be, hey, I really don't need anything. I think it's pretty good. I just want to go to dinner and talk about a few things, not even so much about this week, but just kind of this stretch we got coming up where I'm going to be playing 6 of the next 8 weeks and how we want to, taper that in and that sort of thing. So Tuesday and Wednesday is a lot of that. Thursday and Friday would be more of just hanging out, for lack of a better term. A lot of talk with the caddies, that sort of thing, reminding the caddies of the keys that player might have that they're going into the week with, the 2 or 3 things that they really want to focus on. And because I want to make sure we're all communicating the same message to the player, even though they both might be positive. If I'm telling the guy, hey, let's just be patient and let the course come to you, and the caddy is with great intentions telling them, okay, hey, we need to go get the first few holes because the easiest part of this golf course is in the first 6 holes, then the player's a little conflicted sometimes. And so we're just going over that. Some of the players I talk with more, usually a good bit of joking going on, trying to keep it light. We don't need to be so serious. It's golf. It's not, even though it is their job, people still need to laugh at work. And so trying to keep it light. And then, hardly any, unless it was something dramatic, hardly any instruction at that point. And then while they're playing, I'm not allowed to speak with them in terms of instruction. So I can give them encouragement like anyone else would, but I'm not allowed, if I see something, to tell them. Only the caddy's allowed to provide instruction during an event. And then they'll get off the golf course. A lot of times we might go do something for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. We might not do anything. Just see you tomorrow. And so, usually by the time Friday in the afternoon guys go off would be, when I'd head to the airport or when I'm going to, get in the car and drive home. And so that's, what a week would look like for me. The day, Tuesday and Wednesday, are usually pretty long, depending on how many guys, and then especially depending on how the waves go. Most of those days on tour are 6:30 to 7:30. So they're long. They're kind of fun, So I didn't realize when I was watching that guy eating popcorn, man, that guy's there all day long. And
that's the only time he got to eat that day, right?
That's right. That's right. And that popcorn's a lot better if the guy's coming off of 18, shooting 68 than 76. So,
Guarantee it.
So that's what a week's like.
Good. So you kind of answered a question that I had, but how challenging do you find it, Dr. Mo, to get those caddies on board with you? Because the real relationship, I guess, at the beginning is with the player, right? Does it take some coordination to get everyone together like that?
It can. And usually these guys, the players, right? So the player is the company, is the way we would look at it. And he's employing anywhere from one, meaning he has to have a caddy, at least one to maybe, 6 or 7 other people that are all on his team trying to help him. And usually the core team, you kind of have different teams, but the core team is like the coach, myself, the caddy, and the player. And then we might have some more peripheral people. Definitely the physio guys are in there, but those are more just kind of doing a job to make sure they're physically prepared. But you do have to be careful because the guys are going to be on the physio table every morning before they go off. So I want to make sure that guy's got the right communication as well. It all depends on how you kind of come into the job. If the player has asked you and hadn't talked about it with the caddy, which is rare, sometimes you're actually, a suggestion of the caddy. Hey, we need some help. I think, I can give you the numbers and that sort of thing, but you need somebody else to talk to. I mean, I've had several situations where, I got the job because the caddy I had worked with somewhere else or knew about it. And he was the one that suggested it. So it all depends on kind of how the relationship comes together. But most, and especially, I don't know, 25 to 30 years ago, I could see where that might have been either a conflict or either where there wasn't a lot of buy-in. Now, good thinking and mental coaches are pretty much so accepted within all sports that it's not a big deal. Hey, I'm bringing this guy in and we want to talk and we're all going to be on the same page. And, I guess maybe if they've had a bad experience there, something could happen. But I usually have a warm reception to boil it down.
Right.
Much more so than a cold perception because, all these guys really want is, hey, I want to get this guy playing better. I don't care if we need to, go buy a pogo stick and, jump around in a hotel room. That's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Well, he wins. It's the lottery ticket, right? He wins, they win, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how I based my business when I first got started. And I had a core group of guys, and we'd kind of gone up through the Korn Ferry Tour, which was at that time, I don't know, maybe the Nike Tour or I don't know, Nationwide, whatever it was. And they had gotten on tour, Charles Warren and Lucas Glover, and kind of first talking with them. And they're like, hey, well, we want you to be performance based. And so my contract, if a guy finishes outside the top 125, I have a little bit for but the majority of my money comes based on how they play and the categories that they fall in and the win bonuses and that type of thing. So we're all on the same page in the sense that nobody's just trying to put in time. Everybody is trying to do the best that they can to get this guy to perform well.
Well, and you said something a minute ago that's probably experience talking, I would imagine, where you said, if you're not seeing something, you're not going to say something just to say something and potentially mess something up. Because I would imagine at this this stage of the game, a lot of times, whether it's, Stewart Cink or Zach Johnson or whatever, the things that you say, as small as you may think it is going to carry some weight. So you're planning thought. So if you're, say something that, hey, keep an eye on this or whatever, and there's nothing there. And I would imagine some young sports psychologists are dealing with this because they feel like, well, I'm there. I need to almost justify why I'm there, right? I need to find something that's going to, make my services necessary. And they're probably almost doing more damage at times than not just by calling something out that's not there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like what they teach you maybe in medical school, the first thing is do no harm. Right. Mm-hmm. And so if the guy's playing good, you got to be careful what you say, because especially, if you've been around or if they're the type that just are kind of an early adopter and they're going to take in all this information, you got to be careful with what you say, even if it's just something you've observed that morning with how a hole was playing. I mean, it could be something very benign, or where the wind was, or, just little things,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of subtle details that go on. As y'all know from playing sports, just the most minute things can get in players' head. And that's what I'm always trying to do. I'm trying to get them whatever I can do to kind of keep them light, keep them athletic, and as much as they can just go play golf, as simple as that sounds. But like literally one of the questions I will ask next week over at Augusta, it'll be Thursday, and I'll walk up to probably Zach and I'll say, hey, you know what today is? And he knows, but it will literally be, Thursday, April the 5th or whatever the day is going to be. April 8th. It's going to be Thursday, April 8th. And what that means is, hey, it's Thursday, April 8th, and you've gotten an invitation to play at Augusta National, just like anybody else in the country could. It's not the first round of the Masters and let's go get off to a good start in a major and really, do something, to help my year. I mean, that's so emotion laden that we want to really stay away from that and make it, this is another day on the calendar. This is where we are. We're going to go put in a good day of work and we'll see what it adds up to at the end.
Well, that's a perfect segue into my next question, because talk to us about the pressures of playing in a major and how it affects a player. But specifically, and I was wondering, is it a situation where the good ones treat it the same, or do they just? And this is one of my favorite Dr. Mo sayings, and I will tell you now, I've stolen it from you, is invite the challenge. I love invite the challenge. But you're talking about that right now, is that, it's Thursday, April 8th. Don't look at this as a burden. Don't look at this as like this major is something I have to go do. It's like you said, it's a great opportunity.
Oh, 100%. And what we talk about a lot is we talk about next week is not more important because there will be more media there. It's not more important because there'll be more coverage. And those types of things. What we talk about is what are the physical demands that Augusta National throws at you, right? Because it is physically more demanding than some of the other courses they will face in terms of the precision that's required on their approach shots, the speed control in terms of the greens, and the nuances there, how you need the ball to be falling into the green at the right angle to take the slope or so that it's not, repelled away, those types of things. So, a lot of our discussion this week and then even next week while we're over there is just, hey, physically, this is what you're going to face. So this is what we got to keep working on. Not this is more important because of all of the media drama buildup. That's what they want to do because they don't want you changing the channel. But that's not how I want guys thinking, and I want them thinking, okay, hey, the first hole's 400 and whatever it is, I don't even know, 440 yards. It's a dog leg right. Where's the wind? And this is the shot that we need to hit to hold the fairway. And we'll, whatever you make on the first hole, we'll go to the next hole and just keep doing that over and over. But that's, and then, so when we go to the future one, the PGA, okay, what is Kiowa going to demand? And then, what is Torrey Pines going to demand? That type of thing. As much as possible, I try to always, in all my text and in all my communication, I call it by the name of the golf course. So we will, all my communication will be about Augusta National, not the Masters. And all my communication will be about Torrey Pines, not the U.S. Open, that type of thing.
Very, very, very good.
And so, we get to the U.S. Open. I mean, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but a lot of guys have to qualify for that, and then they qualify, and then we get there Tuesday, and they're just moaning and groaning and whining, and I'm like, why did you enter qualifying? I mean, like, if you don't want to be here,
right,
then next year, how about do me a favor and don't sign up? I mean, so I'm sure there's somebody that would love to have your spot, but you're just miserable to be with right now because, we know it's going to be hard. So
Brandon and I were talking about this today, and as we were preparing to have this conversation with you, is I imagine that just as much as you're wanting to give them those skills and strategies and systems to kind of be prepared for if things start to go sideways, right? It's probably equally as important to give them some, or in that preparation leading up to it, is what's going to happen if things are absolutely going great for me? What's going to happen if it's Saturday and I'm 5 under and, I've got a 5-shot lead on the rest of the field or whatever. Right. I mean, how much is that goes into it?
Well, and what the way we would mention that, or the way we would talk about it, is you just have to be ready for adversity of any kind. Mm. And so adversity just means something I wasn't expecting. It could be 5 under through 5. It could be 3 over through 2. It could be 10% chance of rain and now it's a monsoon. It could be whatever, but you always have to be prepared for the adversity that is going to come. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. So we know that's going to, occur at some point in this event, and we just need to be ready for it. To your point, one of the things, like you mentioned about Saturday, we would only get to that if somehow that had already happened by Friday night. Because like all of our discussion Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday will be prepared to hit the first tee shot on Thursday.
Yep.
It's not about getting off to a good start. It's not about, shooting below par the first day. I mean, yes, everybody knows, if you shoot 78 on the first day, it's going to be difficult, but I don't need to say that. Right. I mean, so my job is to help them get prepared for the first tee shot, right? To invite that challenge and to know, okay, hey, here we go. And even if you don't feel great, that's okay. I mean, I remember this is probably 2013. This is probably about 8 years ago. I'm standing on the putting green at Augusta National Thursday morning. Kyle Stanley is getting ready to tee off. He wears Oakley sunglasses, and the nose piece on his Oakley sunglasses falls off onto the green. He picks it up, and he cannot put it back on his sunglasses. He's shaking so bad, he cannot get the little plastic nose piece to go back on. And I'm like, hey, man, you're fine. Like, give me your glasses. I'll put it back on. I'm like, that just means you're excited. You got adrenaline. It probably means you're going to just bomb this first tee shot, and then you can go get into the round, right? So went off, played fine. But those guys, they're amped up, and they're ready to go. And I mean, the hair on the back of their neck is tingling too. But all of everything that we're geared towards is Thursday morning or Thursday, whatever your tee time is, let's hit that first shot. And then we'll just keep repeating the process that I know we'll get into shows later about. This is what you're trying to do over and over and over. Yeah. Intellectually, it's pretty easy to understand. Emotionally, it's pretty difficult to do, but that's what we're going to try to do.
That's the key. So let's start getting into that. So one of the things that we're going to talk about on today's show is preparation and practice. So tell us a little bit about, this, first of all, how you kind of look at preparation, that acquiring knowledge, but just kind of going the difference maybe between both of those.
Well, so even to back up one step before that would be, I break everything down for any sport into basically 3 areas, kind of on the court or the course or the field, wherever the action is going to occur. That's one kind of arena that you have to be great in. The second one would be preparation and practice, which we'll get into today. And then the third one would be kind of off the course or off the field in terms of how you want to manage that so that it, increases your performance, not takes away from it. But in terms of specifically that second area, preparation and practice, is understanding those are 2 key parts. Preparation is acquiring knowledge, usually from someone or something else. And it's really to increase your true competency and your understanding to move forward. Right. So if you just go practice all the time, but you have no direction, you'll spend a lot of time, But really the only way you would get better is if you started at an incredibly young age and you just had so much time that you could kind of figure it out on your own. But most people don't do that. And even if you took two kids and one had direction and the other one didn't, they're probably going to progress at different rates. So, but the preparation is specific to golf would be taking a lesson, using TrackMan, doing a club fitting. All those things are helpful to improve your skill set. They don't make you better in and of themselves unless you practice them prior to competition, right? And so, the way I would think about it would be your wedges aren't very good. You get a lesson just at your local club and your teacher's like, hey, it might be time to update your wedges. They're 20 years old. And so you agree that's a good idea. And so then you get with the club fitter and you figure out what wedges you like and what shafts you need, that sort of thing. And you get on TrackMan and you figure out, these are the yardages that are going to be kind of good. And then this new set of wedges comes in the mail in a box, right? And you go out and you play in the member guest and you play awful. And you're like, I got new wedges. I don't understand this. It's because you hadn't practiced a lick.
That's right.
I mean, you got the information and you got the new clubs, but people misunderstand what they're doing. People think when they're on the range hitting balls that they're getting better and they're practicing. And I would say, well, you might be. But a lot of times people that come down to Sea Island, right? I mean, one thing they're doing would be preparation, taking a lesson, and they'd be hitting balls and getting feedback from an instructor to truly increase their competence, right? And then the second thing would be potentially just a warm up where they're physically getting loose and getting the club head on the ball, and that's a warm up. And then the third one is truly practicing, which is, hey, now I'm going to go take the information from my teacher and I'm going to go work on this on my own and really figure out how I want to work and what I need to do to make these clubs, react the way I want them to react on the golf course and that sort of thing. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you keep going down that road, practice is the application of the knowledge that you've gained in preparation, usually by yourself. Right. And the same is true whether it's mental or physical. I can teach somebody, the nuances of a good pre-shot routine pretty easily in an hour or two. That doesn't mean they have good pre-shot routines. It means they have just enough information to be dangerous, right? If they don't go work on it, if they don't go really make it their own and understand all the subtle details, then it's not going to really hold up, especially under pressure, right? And so that's where I would start in terms of the preparation and practice. The preparation I don't get that involved with, other than I understand it. I've been around the game a long time, but the practice I get very involved with my guys in terms of how they want to set it up, how we get ready for events, what are we trying to do? When I am on tour, how is Monday different than Tuesday, different than Wednesday, because we got to be ready to go Thursday. And one player's game, might be like at an A level and another one might be at a C+ level. Well, they both have to go out and score. So what can we do to kind of manage that the best? But in terms of just pure practice, there's a few things you really need to know to understand golf at the 30,000 foot view. And that's the two things I tell all my juniors is, like, I know you've played a lot of golf. You think you understand it, but I'm just share with you a few things to make sure we're on the same page. And the first is what I call shot allocation. And shot allocation is just where you hit the golf shots. And the easiest way to explain that, especially to younger students, is with a scorecard. And so on a scorecard, if we go based off of what it says you're supposed to do, you would have 36 putts, 18 times 2. You'd have 14 tee balls, not including the par 3s. You're going to have 4 wedges on the par 5s. Even if you go for the green in 2, say you miss the green, and then you're going to have 6 up and downs. And the 6 up and downs really comes from tour average for both the men and the women on the professional tours is still just above 12 greens per round. So if we add those up, 36 putts, 14 tee balls, 4 wedges, 6 up and downs, that's 60 shots, but they've only hit 5 clubs, driver, putter, 3 wedges. So you do not have 14 equal clubs, not anywhere close. You might hit your 6-iron 3 times in a round. You might hit your putter 3 times on the first hole. So why would you ever go practice your 6-iron more than your putter? That'd be very inefficient and ineffective use of your time if you want to score better. Now, if you just want to feel better on the range and you're out there enjoying the, sun going down, and there is some value in that, right? Just some peace and quality time. But if you're really trying to get your score lower, you have to start to understand the difference between ball striking and scoring, because while they can go together, they're not the same thing at all.
Very, very good point.
So that would be the first part. The second part to play this out would be that even assumes that you're going to hit the ball well, because if we're going off a scorecard, par is 72. Most people don't shoot 72. So we know that you're going to make some mistakes. Well, what happens when you make those mistakes? Well, like life, it depends on where you make them. So if you make a poor swing or a mistake off the tee, it costs you 1.5 shots. Obviously, there's no such thing as a half shot in golf, but either it's one shot because you've hit it in a deep bunker or the trees and you have to chip out, or you've hit it OB, or you lost the ball, or you had like 18 at TPC, water all down the left, and it didn't cover and you have to re-tee, right? So that's 2 shots when that happens. Well, if those happened equally, that'd be 1.5 shots every time, So that's 1.5 shots when you make a mistake off the tee. If you make a mistake on or around the greens, so I got a 30-foot putt, I hit the first one, it goes down to 4 feet, I miss it, that's a stroke. Or if I have a pretty basic chip and I don't get that up and down, that would be a stroke. So on or around the greens is 1 stroke. And then an approach generally costs you half a shot. Because if I'm hitting an 8-iron to the green, and we're going to say on a poor swing, I missed the green. So when I miss the green, if I get that up and down exactly half the time, that would be half a shot on a mistake, right? I missed 2 greens, I'm 1 over par, that's half a shot per missed green. So, if the 3 of us all go play golf, if I'm playing with you, John, and you, Brandon, and we go and we all make 6 mistakes, that doesn't tell us what we need to know. We need to know, okay, well, where did those occur? Because if I make 6 mistakes off the tee, it costs me 9 shots, right? Brandon makes 6 mistakes on and around the greens. That's 6 shots. John, you only make 6 mistakes, but they're all with approaches. It costs you 3 shots. But we're not keeping up with it as we go along. We just know, like, Mo hit a bad tee ball on 3, and John, missed an iron there on 6, and then Brandon 3-putted 8. And I mean, it's like, hey, everybody's kind of hitting some good and hitting some poor, and then we add them up at the end of the day. And John, you shoot 75, and Brandon shoots 78, and I shoot 81. And I'm like, well, how did that happen? Well, it happened because literally my mistakes were either 3 times, especially versus you, 1.5 versus a half. And so you have to start to understand like how golf really works from a mathematical scoring standpoint, not just how it feels coming off the club face or what it looks like flying through the air. Those can be very misleading. They receive a lot of attention on TV, but that's where you got to really understand, okay, if that's the way the game's played and that's the way it's going to be made up, and 80% of my score is only going to come from 20% of my clubs, right? Yeah. Then I really got to make sure that I'm spending my practice time, along those same lines. So, to make this very specific, what I encourage my juniors to do now, most people are not going to have the time to do this, maybe some of your listeners, but if you had 4 hours, and there's nothing magic about the time, if you had 4 hours to go practice, you'd spend an hour putting, that'd be 25% of your time. Maybe it should be more, but it's hard on your back. You'd spend an hour on your short game. So, 20 to 30 yards away from the green and closer than that, that'd be up to 50%. Then you'd work on your fairway wedges. So that'd be, 50 to 125. Now we're up to 75%. And then when I get on the driving range with my long irons, my long game, that would be another hour. But of that hour, I'm going to spend 15 to 20 minutes on my tee ball, because now I can get 82% of my practice putting short game wedges into my driver, because I know how that's going to play out on the golf course. Right? Yeah. And so in literally in a 4-hour practice session, you only need about 45 minutes from your 9-iron to your 3-wood. If you care about scoring. Right. If you care about, just really hitting these beautiful high draw 7-irons that you're only going to hit twice when you get out on the golf course, then go for it. But, if you care about your score at the end of the day, that's probably not the best use of your time. Yeah. So does that help some in terms of just understanding?
Absolutely.
Let me tell you something. I'm only imagining people at home just like, I need something else to write on, like literally, because I'm just sitting here thinking to myself how purposeful all of that was,
Well, and we bring it up all the time. It's the application of theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I love to hear is actually how it's broken down and actually how to apply it, because I think so many people, it really doesn't matter if it's golf or any other sport or even in business, where they're not intentional with their time and their effort. They don't take the time. And what I love what you just said, Dr. Mo, is taking the time to truly understand what you're doing, right?
Right.
Hey, I love golf. I want to go out. I want to shoot a number, right? Now, I will say that if I shot a 75, then we only played 9 holes. But but I do love the idea of having some intentional effort behind what you're doing, regardless of what it is, and fully understanding why you're there and how to compete. That's amazing. So.
And then the other thing that I would want, maybe as a take home for the listeners is just to understand how their clubs work, right? And I'm not talking in terms of lie and loft and technology. I'm talking about how do these things really work? And so they can't really see this, but if everybody listening would just imagine, take your hand and put it at like a 45-degree angle. Well, if that were a little bit more, that'd be your 60-degree wedge. And the reason it's hard to hit a 60-degree wedge is because the ball can roll up the face more than it can on other clubs without as much loft. But if you can get really good at the contact and getting that to come off, okay? So if on the low end, you're great with your wedges and you get the ball to come off consistently, then that's going to work its way up through the set. And then if I'm holding literally in my hand a driver in my right hand and a 7-iron in my left hand, and I swing them at the same time, on an arc, the head on the driver is going to travel further than the head on the 7-iron. If I can control the longest club and I can control the club with the most loft, the clubs in the middle will get better. But if I spend all my time focused on the middle clubs, the ends will not get better and they're going to cost me more. So when you go to the driving range, you literally need to think, okay, I need to hit a lot of wedges. I need to hit a lot of T-balls and just pick one iron. It doesn't matter what iron you pick, right? That's going to help your game get better more efficiently than spending all this time hitting these irons.
Right.
Because if you can get good with any iron, it's going to transfer to the other irons. And by taking care of the ends, the middle is bound to get better.
Yeah. Talk to me, because I love all of this. I'm thinking about, one of the things, Brandon and I both played baseball, and one of the things that as coaches of baseball, I've always told, young baseball players is, if you go to a major league game, if you get there 3 hours before the game, you're going to see Albert Pujols or some of those guys hitting off of a tee for at least 45 minutes to an hour, like just grooving their swing. Like everything has a purpose. Like they're just wanting to get to the point where they're just seeing the ball in the barrel. And so that's what I love about when you're talking about these things and we're letting all that unfold. Was I'm sitting here thinking, this is why these guys are consistently, able to score where they are, is because they're putting that level of detail, as Brandon talked about a minute ago. So the next step, or I guess one other thing I want you to talk about as it relates to practice is there's pressure and stress involved, right? It's going to be a lot of that next week. I mean, although I'm already learning from you, Dr. Mo, I'm not thinking about next week. I'm thinking about, let's just focus on today, right? But we have to prepare when we're inviting the challenge. We got to prepare for the challenge. And so how are you creating? I love some of the different games that you play to prepare for pressure and stress. Right. Can you talk about some of those?
Yeah. So the hardest thing for me to do with players is basically, simulate the pressure that they are going to feel. Right. But that doesn't mean we don't try, because and most people, let me back up. The question I get asked more than anything else when I give talks at clubs or when I'm going around the country is, how come I can hit it so good on the range and I can't hit it that good on the golf course? And the honest answer is, you're not that good on the range. You just think you are. Right? Because most people stand there and they hit 7-iron after 7-iron after 7-iron, and by the 8th ball, it's pretty good. But that's all based on feedback and adjusting. That's not how you play golf. Yeah. So most people leave the range with a false sense of confidence. I mean, they truly think they're better than they are because of the way they've set up their practice, and they don't have any realistic kind of pressure practice, if you will. So like if we just take that one instance of being on the range, it's okay. That it's not that hitting the 7-iron over and over and over is a bad thing, because you need to hit it and see where it's going and then adjust through the feedback and be able to truly get your confidence up. It's just that that's incomplete. It does not tell you how you perform under pressure. So then what you would do, if you were a little kid at Sea Island, we would have you 2 sets of balls in your workstation, and we'd have a stick in the middle, not for alignment, but just to separate the left side and the right side. And the left side's the learning side, where we're going to hit the shot, get the feedback, adjust, hit the shot, get feedback. That's where we're going to do our learning. But then with every club that we choose to hit, we're going to go to the right side, or the more realistic side. So this is your typical kind of block and random practice in terms of, typical literature, right? But really making that right side realistic, putting yourself under pressure, that sort of thing. I mean, I have kids and we go make, a ton of 5-foot putts over and over and over. And then I say, okay, hey, we're going to go do a little bit different, make this fun. Cause I think you're putting pretty good. You think you're putting pretty good? Yeah, I'm putting pretty good. Okay, good. So we put 4 tees 5 feet away from the hole in different places around the hole. And I say, okay, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to kind of, jog to this towel out here about 30 yards off the back of the putting green. And we're going to jog back, and then we're going to run to it, and then we're going to sprint to it. And then you're going to go hit this first putt. And every time you miss, you're going to repeat the sprint part of this. Right. And so I can literally get their heart rate going. I can get, their arms feeling kind of weird. I can get them sweating. And what the point is, okay, the only way you're going to complete this drill is this gets back into the home course, but you have to know what you're getting ready to do and trust your routine and really get into that. And so I'm always trying to simulate pressure. There's not a day goes by when Zach Johnson and I are out practicing that we're not doing some sort of gambling pressure, some sort of game. If I can help it, where it's a little bit aired my way. So not that I'm playing, I'm just the one gambling, but I like to win. He says all the bets are unfair, but I don't think that's true. So, and he always accuses me of, I thought you were trying to build me up. I said, well, no, I'm just trying to be realistic,
That's right.
But that's a huge part of your practice is if you practice all the time and it's very casual and you're talking and you're having fun with your buddies and you got some music going and you hit multiple shots to the same target, and then you go out and you wonder why you struggle, on the third tee in the member guess, which is really tight and got water down the left, and it's because you're not prepared for that. Yeah. You haven't simulated that at all. So why would you expect to perform well in that situation? A lot of people, they're doing, basic addition and subtraction on the range, and then they're trying to go do 4-level calculus problems on the golf course, and they wonder why they can't, figure it out. So,
yeah, it's the other thing you talk a lot about is showing up, being consistent, right? It's on the course. It's just staying engaged and being consistent. Talk a little bit maybe about that, just where that comes from. Right.
Well, probably one of my favorite questions to ask students is just, what's your number one job when you're practicing? And 95% of them say to get better. And I say, well, that's really a byproduct. Your number one job when you're practicing is to stay engaged and stay focused on the plan, that you have. That assumes one, that you have a plan, but to stay engaged with what you're doing, because if you get bored, you're going to get sloppy. And if you get sloppy, you're going to get worse. So you can absolutely go practice Monday through Friday and be worse Friday than you were Monday, just because you let yourself get bored. And then you basically allowed kind of bad mechanics to just, take over throughout the week. And so, you know, that's a lot of what we talk about in terms of how you're going to set it up, what you want to do, you know, and just really being engaged. I like, you know, I've given all the kind of drills and fun little games that we do names. So it's really easy to communicate. So, you know, we might be at home and Michael Thompson might tell me, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to work on my putting for an hour and a half. You know, can you just make it up for me? And I'd be like, okay, hey, yeah, do your mechanics at first. And then I want you to do string. That's the speed game. And then I want you to come back and do a little bit, 5 minute more mechanics. Then I want you to play 24. And then that's just a scoring game. Then we'll do another speed. We're going to do cluster. Then we'll come back and do 30. And then I want you to finish with 15, 15, 15, which is a pressure game, right? And so it's just laid out. This is exactly what we're going to do. It helps your time go by faster. But, I mean, if you just walk out on the green and you drop down 3 balls and you put them to one hole and then you take those 3 balls and you go to another hole, I mean, that's just very inefficient, kind of lazy practice. And, you know, if you subject yourself to lazy practice, then you're not going to improve your performance very much. Yeah. So
you're actually reinforcing it. This is the thing where, you know, if you're not careful, that mistake in your swing or that thing that you're not, you know, paying attention to, right, you're now doing it 100 times that day or whatever the case would be. And so all you've done is just reinforced a bad habit.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, you know, I'm big on that. I'm big on, you know, a lot of my kids that come see me, you know, and I'll just ask them, I'll say, hey, what kind of grades you make in school? A's and B's. Okay, well, do you feel like you're a genius? No. I mean, 99% of them say, no, you know, I think I do a pretty good job of how I set it up. And I say, well, you ever apply that skill to your golf? No, not really. Well, okay, I know you got a phone. Take your phone out on Sunday, check the weather. And then let's just, if you got 10 hours of practice, let's go kind of map out what those 10 hours are going to look like. And, you know, let's figure out what you want to get done, because I think you can be improving at a faster rate. Because if you tell me you want to go to college and you want to play for a top 20, you know, Division I team, well, that means you want to be somewhat unique. Well, you can't be a unique performer if you're doing common practice. That's not going to work. And so, you know, I get into a lot of those types of discussions. And then what you see at the highest levels is guys, you know, they really understand what they have to do. And, you know, like you mentioned in the putting the ball on the tee and watching those guys taking batting practice. I mean, that's putting practice for guys on tour. That's their dirty 30. I mean, it's always going to be there. They can't get away from it. Any job in the world, 30% of it is just, you got to do it. And, you know, you're always going to have to putt. And so they always have to stay on top of their putting technique and just get that in. Right. But they can't even go through that sloppy or lazy, because like you said, that'll groove a bad stroke. And so, so that's kind of how we would set it up and the things that we're talking about. And, you know, like I've already talked to Michael Thompson, and the main thing, he hadn't played in the Masters in several years. And so he's going back this year. And, you know, one of the main things that we're talking about is, hey, we really want to spend, you know, probably a good hour and a half, both Tuesday and Wednesday in the short game area there, just trying to set him up for the different shots that he's going to have. We'll have some sort of wager on the line for sure. Not that it's going to be anything like what he's going to be maybe feeling, but just if he can have some confidence and go through that and that sort of thing, and really just learn how to, okay, hey, this worked on this part of the property. There's no reason it's not going to work on the other side of the property. You know, if I choose to believe that and I've gone about it the right way, then it'll show up.
And bring 100% of whatever you showed up with that day, right? I mean, it's that idea that you're not always going to be, you know, the A game's not always going to be there. The B game, you know, you may show up with sometimes, or C, but you're going to have to go out and compete with it, you know.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. 100%. You know, this is what you got. And I mean, one of the biggest problems, even this is a little bit different than practice, but with college players is college players, they go out and they try to play great right out of the gate. And you say, well, isn't that a good thing? And I'd say, well, I mean, it's an okay thing depending on how we define that. If you say play great, meaning focus on these processes and this is what I want to do and these are the things I control, I'm okay with that. but that's not what they normally mean. They normally mean, I want to be 2 under through 5. And then instead, when they're 1 over through 5, they just emotionally crash. And so because they've kind of backed themselves into a corner where the only acceptable outcome is to be 2 under through 5, that just puts a lot of undue pressure on you. And really getting them to understand, hey, that's not the way we need to go about this.
Yeah. It's interesting. I heard Fuzzy Zeller one time talking, you were saying about like amateurs and different things. Is Fuzzy Zeller one time said that the biggest mistake a lot of amateurs make is they're always shooting for the flag. Mm-hmm. That's always their target. And he's like, very rarely is that really, I mean, in certain situations, right, that it's all situational. But you really put a lot of pressure on yourself, always finding that as your target instead of sometimes the best play is just middle of the green and let's go from there.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I don't know I can't remember the exact specifics, but there was a quote years back. Y'all might even be able to find it in an interview with Nicholas. And it was one of the Masters that he won. And they asked him after the, tournament was over, what he was most proud of, that it was his 4th Masters or that he had beaten these guys or whatever. And he said, no, the thing I'm most proud of, he said, I think I only crossed my line like 4 times this week. And they're like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, I always set a line like this far from the flag, and I don't want it to cross over that. And so I only crossed my line like 4 times, just being very specific about how he wanted to work the ball and the details that he was paying attention to with his shots. That's what he got the most satisfaction from.
Yeah. So. That's awesome. Well, we are coming up on the time. Let me ask you, is there anything else from a preparation practice standpoint that I know we've talked about some of the games, and I hope that the listeners have taken away from that there's some things, having some keys, also for those practices, being intentional, whether that's with putting, is that, having a consistent setup and repeatable stroke and some of those things that you've talked about before.
I would say probably the most applicable one would be if you have a member guest or a club championship or something like that coming up, right, is take your last lesson before you play in that 7 to 10 days prior, and then really go practice on your own and go kind of make it your own, right? And spend the majority of that practice on your putting and your short game and your tee-ball, getting your tee-ball in play, right? I mean, don't go take a lesson focused on your 6-iron and your 7-iron Thursday before the member guest, because one, it's too close and it can't even help you that much, right? I mean, so just be smart about how you're going about attacking the game so that you can actually score better. That's probably the biggest advice I would tell people, because I see that happen, too often down here at Sea Island. Somebody comes down here to see us and they get a putting lesson and they spend time with me and they get a full, and then I'm like, well, what's your schedule coming up? Oh yeah. Member guest is next weekend. And I'm thinking, wow, this is not going to go good.
I've seen your future.
Yeah. So,
Brandon, did you have something? I didn't mean to cut you
off.
No,
not at all. I was actually trying to find that quote that Dr. Mo. I'll be looking that one up later.
Yeah, and it may not be. I don't know. I've heard Mike Bender tell that story a lot, because Mike Bender's ex-coach, he played on tour for a little while. Probably, I guess it would have been in the 70s. So it's going to be pretty old. And it could be more of just a story that had been passed down. I don't know if you're going to actually find it, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, one of the things for you listeners we're going to try to do is, we may give an example or something in the show notes of one of these games that Dr. Mo works with the players on, whether it's 15, 15, 15 or something. We can figure out a way to drop that onto, into the show notes so you guys can kind of get an idea. I think that the big takeaway is that, making sure that you're putting yourself in those situations where you have to make some stressful putts. You got to make some pressure, some shots and pressure situations, then being consistent and being engaged is a big thing. So you guys are going to, as you can tell, get a lot out of these 4 shows. This is just the first one. And I know myself, I've taken away a lot of things. One of the things is unique performers, and you can't get unique performance with common practice. I'm going to definitely be using that at some time in my future. So thanks for giving that one up. So we are going to be seeing you again next month as we get ready for the second show, which will be leading into the PGA Championship, which is actually May 20th through 23rd at the Ocean Course, somewhere Brandon and I are familiar with down there in Charleston, South Carolina, out in Kiowa Island. So looking forward to that. That's a whole other unique challenge at Dr. Mo.
That's when the wind's blowing, that's one of the hardest golf courses I've ever been on in my life. I mean, it's a lot of fun and it's scenic. So you try to go out and enjoy that walk, but man, can it be difficult.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You better have everything. You better get a couple of extra sessions in before that one. So.
Or some extra sleeves of balls, right? So
one thing you better practice is that low T-ball shot, because if
that
you
little
get
stinger,
wind, it is you do not want to play at the mercy of the wind around that place.
Yeah. Well, listen, Dr. Mo, we can't thank you enough for this first show. It was everything we expected it to be. You delivered it a big way, and I can't wait. And good luck to all of you guys as you get ready for the Masters next weekend.
And thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it. So, this is going to be fun.
Safe travels and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Want to provide feedback or stay up to date with the show? Visit our Instagram page at Mental Advantage Podcast, or you can send us an email at podcast@mentaladvantage.net. To have John Cullen work with you or your team, please write to him at john.cullen@mentaladvantage.net. Thanks for listening to today's episode.